Hey, everybody, welcome into Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. I am Coach Brad Gough, and this is your FC Cincinnati versus New York City FC Game 1 of the MLS 2024 Cup Playoffs recap show. FC Cincinnati got their playoffs off to a winning start by taking care of business at home against New York City Football Club. Despite generating a ton of shots and nearly 3 expected goals, they only managed to beat goalkeeper Matt Freese one time early in the second half. But that was all they needed because their defense completely shut down NYCFC, limiting them to a few half chances and hopeless penalty shouts. Was it a good thing that FCC generated 22 shots, or a bad thing that so many of them were not on target? Was their defense stellar on the night, or was NYC just impotent? We're going to talk about all this and more, and we're going to do it with the one and only Justin Hoyte. Justin, how you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic, Coach. I'm great. Even better on the fact that the team got the first playoff victory at home. I'm doing fantastic, Coach. How are you doing? How are you feeling after that playoff victory for the team?
I'm doing well, man. I was at the game, and believe it or not, even though FC Cincinnati's been pretty good for a few years, because I was living in California, that was my very first playoff match that I've got to attend. And I'm hoping that we'll get to celebrate your first playoff match in attendance as a fan, if not this year, then hopefully at least next year, because you keep trying to say someday you're going to come over and see me and visit and maybe even live here. So we'll see if that is yet to come.
Yeah, hopefully, Coach. Like I say, I've taken one. It's like I'm taking 1 year at a time. Last year I didn't get to go to a game. This year at least I got to go to the game. So things are working in progress. So I'm hopeful that I can make a playoff game, but if not, hopefully next year I'm making many more games.
Yeah, we shall see. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know that we are sponsored once again by Apollo Home, as this Cincinnati area does this weird, it's going to be winter, it's going to be fall, wait, now it's summer again thing. Make sure your HVAC system is in order. You can call Apollo Home for that, or for any plumbing or electrical needs that you have. And before you do that, and while you have your phone out, you can always head on over to the socials and give us a follow. I am at FC Cincy Tac Talk, and he is at Justin Hoyte 32. And as always, you can drop us a note at Cincy Soccer Talk or in the electronic mail slots, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. All right, Justin, let's get right to it. At Bilbaleo1 says, all those shots from the offense, was it good generation, poor decision making, just meh? He wants us to talk about the front three fluidity and how good they looked, even with a few missed passes and turnovers. Tom Backey wants us to talk about accurate passing and patience in the final third. So let's talk about that offensive game plan, all those shots FCC created, and whether this is like a flash in the pan or something that we can look for going forward. So a couple things I noticed, Justin, is first, FC Cincinnati, I think we're really patient swinging the ball side to side and looking for the opportunity to play forward. Also, within that patience, Justin, they didn't play slowly. There was lots of skipping a player, going from right center back to left center back, passing Miles Robinson, or even all the way to the left wing back. They were swinging that ball with precision, with pace, and I thought it looked really good moving back and forth. I test Justin. Did it look to you like they were just moving the ball much better than we've seen at times when they've played this patiently?
No, it looked like they moved the ball, I would say, with urgency and with a purpose. We've not seen it in recent games, and what was good that when it matters and against a good New York side, I think it really paid off, and you could see that it looks like they was in playoff mode. It looks like they was had that winning mentality, and there was a lot of fluidity in it. And I feel like they really upped the tempo, and I feel like that really worked in the team's favor. And I guess that's why I would say they got a lot of chances and a lot of chances on goal, and it really paid off.
Yeah, the other thing that I noticed is even though they were swinging the ball back and forth and looking to play forward, they didn't wait until there was a huge gap in the defense to play forward. With guys like Kubo, Lucho, or Shano Assad, even Obi and Buka, all of them are really good in tight spaces, using their body, quick touches, keeping possession, drawing fouls. And we've talked about that before, Justin, about trusting those guys and not being afraid to give them the ball with an opponent. And it seemed to me like FC Cincinnati knew NYC was setting up those pressure pockets where you would
Mhm.
leave a player near the touchline kind of open and then look to close on him quickly after he receives it. But they could still cycle a player out there and give him the ball and trust that he could work out of the pressure. So when they were building out of the back, sometimes they would stack Assad and Kubo both on the left, and then they'd either play it to Assad, and then he would have Kubo ahead of him, or a midfielder like Obi to the inside, or Assad would cycle out to the middle and Kubo would drop in deeper. And then same, they could play Kubo and they'd have Assad, Obi would move forward. Sometimes when Kubo wasn't there or Shano was dropping in on that side to combine. But all of this leads me to my next point is that Lucho Acosta did not have to keep dropping deeper and deeper to get
No.
on the ball in this match. So you believe
Mhm.
it or not, Justin, Yamil Assad led the team in touches with 69.
Mhm.
Lucho only had 58. And here's the better part of that. Only 15 of Lucho's 58 touches did not occur in the attacking third of the field. Only 15 touches in the middle and defensive third. Justin, we've
Mhm.
seen time and time again that Lucho needs to get on the ball in the attacking third more than in the
Mhm.
midfield. Do you think this was a good strategy that FC Cincinnati and Pat Noonan employed? Or do you think maybe having Lucho touch the ball less was just a consequence of how NYC was playing? I didn't necessarily notice them man marking him harder or anything. I felt like he was staying up higher and looking to get like that second or third pass as opposed to dropping so deep. What about you?
Yeah, no, I saw that, coach. Like you say, I felt like he played a lot higher up, and I feel like him playing a lot higher up. Yes, he got less touches because he wasn't dropping deep to get on the ball to try and create things. He was playing a lot higher up, and I feel like that caused a big problem. I feel it also stretched the field a little bit. And him having lesser touches and other players having more touches, he's getting the ball higher up and he's more effective when he's playing higher and further forward. We want him higher up. So for me, coach, I'll be honest, if he's going to play higher up and be more effective and have less touches and the players around him have more touches. Assad, look how he played in this game.
Yeah.
If he has more touches than Lucho and Lucho creates an assist for him or creates an assist for other players, I'm happy with him being higher up. Do I want him further back, trying to get on the ball and trying to create things from deep? No. And I feel he only does that when he's frustrated and he can't get on the ball and get into the game. And I feel that's when he drops deep. And I feel like that doesn't help the team when he drops deep, if I'll be honest.
Yeah, he is not the kind of player who is looking up and hitting like 40-yard
No,
diagonals
it's
that
not.
often.
No, yeah,
Like Orishano's that guy. Orishano
yeah.
can look up and ping a
Mhm,
ball 60 yards on a dime,
mhm,
right? Lucho is not that guy. He's going to dribble you and he's going to look for those little tight through balls and threaded balls or combining. So having him drop deeper really just pulls him out of the attack. So I don't know for sure that it was intentional or if it was just like a confluence of how the team played, but I hope that this is something Pat Noonan and company go back to, because this was the thing that made FC Cincinnati transition from that wooden spoon year to the playoff year when Pat Noonan came in, was starting to emphasize getting Lucho on the
mhm.
ball higher up the field.
Yeah.
The last point I think on Justin, and I think this is harder to define because it's like it's not a tactic so much as just I wonder if it's just how the players played. So I'd really want your take on this as a player and if it's like playoffs or if you think the coach's instruction. But it felt like players out there just kept things simple and played to
Yeah.
their strengths. So,
Mhm,
like, we know Orishano is really good receiving in the midfield and dribbling forward. He's got a fantastic change of pace to beat players. So, what did he do? He continued to drop into the half spaces where he could spin either way and dribble forward. And
mhm,
because of that, he ended up with way more progressive yards carried. So he dribbled the ball forward more than anyone else. And he was also 4 for 4 on dribbles because he was not getting the ball on the wing and having to beat a guy from standing still. He was
mhm.
getting the ball in space where he had multiple directions to go. Cheeto, who's the best passing center back on the team, he basically knew that they were going to play up the left a lot. But what they did is, even though all the depth was over there to play short passes, whenever he received the ball, he looked to look up and see, Buka or Kubo running in that channel off the right. And he was able to lead the back line with 4 progressive passes. And also from the center back position, had 3 shot creating actions. One more, and then I'll get your thought. Pavel Buka. He is not a fantastic passer in terms of ball progression or breaking lines. So what did he do in this match? He got into the box more often. He didn't sit around there out on the top edge, like waiting to get the ball and try to hit a through ball, which means he had a pretty quiet game in terms of touches and overall stats, but he had 4 shot creating actions and 3 key passes where he averages just 2 shot creating actions and less than 1 key pass per 90. So he was, and then also with him pushing into the box, that created space around the top of the box for like a Luka or a Kubo to drop into. So Justin, my question to you is that the players just like honing in and focusing in because of the playoffs, or do you think that that's the coaches being like, we're going to try to put you in position to succeed based on your strengths? I don't know if we know that for sure, but just your take on a player as the game gets tighter because it's playoffs and you feel a little bit more, even though it's a best of 3, like it's win or go home, do you rely on your strengths there? Or do you think that's more of a coaching thing?
I think it's a coaching thing because the coaches would have seen something within the individual player to put them in certain positions to be able to succeed. And I also think they've looked at it and thought, right, how are we going to get the best out of each player? They probably would have spoke to Lucho and say, don't drop deep. We've got players that can find you in certain areas. They've looked at player strengths, looked at Assad's strengths, what Orishano's good, what Kubo's good at. And I feel like the players have gone out and delivered it. And what is a good thing is that when you're speaking about a coach, about the individual players and individual talents, they all played to their strengths. And what the main thing is, they kept it simple. And when you try and overcomplicate things go wrong. When you play simple, I feel you're more and more effective. And what have we wanted from this team in previous games is for them to play simple and play to their strengths. And I feel in this game, the game plan, if that was the game plan, it worked perfectly well. Yeah. And what was good about it, coaches, we've been crying out for the players to run in behind, to stretch the field, to then create the pockets of space for Lucho to run into, for Assad to get into, for Orishano to drop deep, or to give Buka that license to get on the ball a bit higher up as well. And I feel them running in behind and getting NYFC defenders running back to goal, they didn't want to do that. You heard the commentators say they're not wanting to run behind and face their own goal. And they was doing the right things and they kept on doing it. And I feel they got a lot of success. Whereas previous games, they haven't been running in behind and they've not got that success. So I feel that played into the players' strengths as well, because we know the speed of Orishano, we know what Kubo's good at. And I felt like that really played into the team's game plan and it worked really, really well in this game.
Yeah, so that last sentence, it worked really, really well in this game. Here's my last question before we move on to talking about some of those shots and chances. Are these things, because they're all so simple, getting Lucho on the ball higher up the field, being patient and unafraid to play into tight windows, playing to your strengths and playing simple. Is this a formula for FC Cincinnati to keep winning in the playoffs? Or is it working just against New York City because they're maybe not as good as a Columbus or a Miami or a team that FC Cincinnati might face when they advance?
I feel with NYFC, I feel you have to play them game by game. I feel with teams like Columbus and obviously Miami, you have to think about individual talents that you're playing against. Yes, they are a good team and a good squad, but there's individual talented players that can create something out of nothing. We have players that can do that, but on the other hand, they have got players that can create something out of nothing. They're world-class players that can do stuff that you're thinking, wow. So I feel it works in this game, but yes, in other games, I feel you have to play differently just because of the personnel you're playing against. But I feel against NYFC, this was a great game plan for this game. Now we're looking at it as the next game. How are we going to approach it? Are we going to approach it the same, or are we going to play differently?
It's a great question.
We have to see, because it's a good question, Coach, because what we have to think about is now we're playing on a different field.
Yeah.
Something that we're not comfortable with, something that we're not used to. They've been used to it. So how are we going to approach it? We know they're going to have to come out and win this game. So how the team are going to approach it? They're going to be more defensively. Are they going to sit back more? They're going to be more patient, or are they going to go and play out how they played in this game? But I feel like if they keep it simple, I feel they're going to get a lot of joy, because look how many chances they created, coach. For a
Yeah.
team that didn't look like they was creating many chances, they created so many chances in this game, and that's the highlight. That's the plus thing about it.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about some of those chances, because one of the questions from Bill Baleo was whether FCC having so many shots was a good thing, or I think what he was kind of getting at is, did they settle too much? So when you have 22 shots and only 7 are on target, you kind of have to
XG?
ask that question. Did you say XG?
You want the XGs on that?
Yeah. No, this is just number of shots. This is 22. But I do have some numbers for you, because I know you love numbers.
I love numbers.
22 shots, 7 on target. 9 of those shots were from 20 yards out or more. 5 of those shots were from 29 yards out or more. So 5 of 22 shots from nearly 30 yards. We talked about some of their patience, but did it look to you like FCC sometimes were looking up and kind of being impatient and be like, I'm just going to have a shot here, even if it's not quite on?
Yeah. I feel like in certain situations you give another pass, or try and get a little bit closer to have a shot. But when you've got players that can strike the ball from distances, sometimes you think, why not have a dig? But I feel, you do sometimes look at it and think, that's a bit impatient, and you've just shot for for no reason there. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And
hit a note.
You can't score if you don't shoot, right? But here's what I did
Yeah,
like
that's
about
true.
that. What I really liked about it is, of the 9 shots that were from distance, 5 of them came in the first half. So that means 4, there were fewer in the second half. 8 shots in the first half. Of those 8, only 1 would be considered a good chance if you start to measure XG, which again, we know. 14 shots in the second half, with 4 of them being good. So 1 of 8 as opposed to 4 of 14. So what this means is that I think that they came out in the second half and executed better and showed a little bit better patience, worked some better opportunities. Now, those are just shots. That doesn't even count chances that might be considered really good chances, but that didn't quite end up in a shot or a good shot. Like early in the second half, there's a fantastic play where Obi drops in, plays to Assad on the left in a really tight space. Assad pops the pass over defenders to Lucho, who's in the center circle. Lucho flicks it on first time, or lays it down actually for Obi, who had moved forward. And then Obi plays it in behind the defense for Orishano to run onto. And so he's in on goal. So already I'm saying that's a chance. Now the ball doesn't settle for him, so it bobbles off his knee, and that means he goes to a tight angle, and then his shot is eventually blocked out for a corner. So it's not considered a good chance by XG, because the shot was from a bad angle. There was a defender there. But those sorts of threats, like you're talking about, that running in behind, I think causes the defense to have to play a little bit differently. Did it feel to you like FCC got more threatening as the game went on? And then because I think that's definitely the case, do you think it was halftime adjustments, or maybe more like NYC tiring out a little bit as the game went on?
Yeah, I feel NYFC tired a little as the game went on. That is only down to the amount of pressure that Cincinnati put on them early on. And in the second half, the tempo that the team played at, the speed of play that they was playing at, and the amount of chances they played at, and I thought they limited NYFC to hardly nothing. So in that sense, you can see why a team like NYFC would tire out for the amount of pressure that Cincinnati was giving them.
Yeah, and they pressed defensively a lot too. NYC
A
did.
lot
So,
high up, that's tiring. When you press in high, and then you're getting pressed in the other end, coach. That's not easy to do. That is tiring, especially when you're not used to playing on a big field. That's tiring, coach.
Yeah, Justin's like, give me a mid block. I just sit back here, right? Defend the space.
Trust me, yeah. I'll defend my space nice and easy.
Let's talk a little bit about another thing that I found really interesting, which was their FC Cincinnati set pieces. because these are things that have been much derided over the course of the year, and rightfully so. So many times, Lucho Acosta hitting the first defender with a corner, or just putting shots over the bar. By my count, FC Cincinnati created 3 big chances off of set pieces. You had Miles Robinson and Yuya Kubo and Teenage Hadebe all getting really good chances off of set pieces. Obviously, the delivery was better. But the other thing that I noticed, which was really interesting, and I'm not sure if you saw this or not, is that Buka, every free kick that was like a corner or a free kick from distance, he would almost like go and mark that first defender, not the wall, not the player standing 10 yards from the ball, but like on a corner, the guy standing near the first post. Buka was marking that player. And what that meant is when that ball was floated in or hit in a little too flat, he was there to kind of run interference. And in fact, he flicked on Lucho's corner kick that ended up with Kubo heading just over the bar. That was Kubo's really big set piece chance. So nothing fancy, but I am curious to see if that is a coaching adjustment and something going forward. Talk about for a second as a defender, because FC Cincinnati had corners and set pieces and were creating chances. They didn't score off any of those, but how as a defender does that like kind of chip away at your confidence or your psyche in a game if you're defending like set piece after set piece and not even doing it particularly well? Like the other team might not be scoring, but they're getting chances, they're heading just over the bar, those sorts of things. What does that do to you, a team, as they defend those?
Mentally, it's tiring. Mentally, it's tough. You're like, oh, you're thinking you've defended this set piece, then they're getting another one. You're like, again, okay, they're not going in, but you're like, we've got to defend again. We're defending again. We're trying to play out from the back. They're winning the ball. They're pressing. Now your thought process is like, how are we going to stop this? How are we going to play against it? Like mentally, you're just not in tuned in like attacking. You're just like, you're thinking about the other team so much. I feel like mentally you switch off. And you do get lapses of concentration, and mentally, I think it tires you out. Why it tires you out is because when you're constantly defending set pieces or defending the other team attacking or giving the ball away and you're having to defend, your mind and I would say, you're not getting a rest. You don't get rest on the ball. When you get the ball up front, and the attackers are giving you that your team's attacking, you're defending, that's your rest period. When you're defending so much and there's so many corners, you're not getting a rest period. You have to stay mentally switched on throughout that time. If you switch off one moment, the other team's going to score. So you have to mentally switch on so you don't get that break. Whereas I feel in this game, when Cincinnati are defending, they can get that break, the defense. Why? Is because you've got someone like Lucha, you've got someone like Orshano, you've got someone like Kubo. Assad was doing it, where you can get the ball to them and they can do something. They're attacking, they're pressing well. And all you have to do is organize in front of you. And that's where you get your rest. That's where you get your mental rest. And that's where you get a big breather and be like, right, I'm ready to go again for the next attack. Or if we have to defend, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And when a defense is under that much pressure, they're bound to make a mistake. And it's just whether you can capitalize on that. So that leads us to the FC Cincinnati goal. Let's talk about it, because I think it had a bit of everything. It happened in the 51st minute, and NYC was trying to build out of the back, and they play it to Santi in the midfield, Santi Rodriguez, and he tries to dribble forward. Obi is tracking him. He lunges in and gets a touch, and Assad, who's pinching into the midfield, wins it and is all of a sudden on the dribble in transition. So you have that big mistake there, right? Lucho is out to his left, Orshano is to his right, and Kubo is in the middle of the field. So really good spacing. I think Assad does a good job of waiting until the defender commits and then dishing the ball to his right to Orshano. Kubo makes a great little inside out run from the middle out towards the right, and Orshano slots him in. And he pivots and hits a really good shot from a tight angle that the goalkeeper has to make a sprawling save on. It was a good shot to the point where even XG would consider that a good chance. But the goalkeeper makes a really good save and keeps it out of the net, but it just pings across the goal to Acosta, who hits the rebound first time and basically banks it off Assad's head, who is standing wide open in the middle of the field. Justin, talk about the goal and what you saw from not just an FC Cincinnati standpoint, but maybe from a way the NYC defense wasn't able to cope because of being a little bit mentally tired or not entirely focused.
I don't think there was. It's about them being focused, but I just feel they couldn't deal with trying to play out the press that Cincinnati was able to do. And then defensively, I felt like they just watched the ball and tried to go to the ball. And I felt like Cincinnati press was really good. I feel in other instances and after that, their press, the timing of the press was fantastic. And when you get that right, you're bound to score in one situation. And I mean, when the ball falls to Assad there, I think I was thinking it was going to be a goal straight away. He's got great technique, great ability, and it was great that it fell to him, and it was a great finish by him.
I love the image of the ball falling to Assad, because basically it's funny. Some people have even said, I wonder if Lucho called bank when he hit that shot, because he basically pings it off his head. Assad was just like, but I do think when you watch it, he kind of cushions it like he does. It's actually, I don't think it would have been a hard finish. I think he could have just stood there and let it smack off his face, but I think it's actually like a deft touch if you actually watch the replay. What I loved about it, Justin, is the spacing, like I talked about. The fact that when Assad picks up the ball, Lucho doesn't come running towards it. He stays wide. The fact that Orshano drifts a little bit wider to create that angle. The fact that Kubo continues to push the center backs back and then waits till Orshano gets the ball to make that darting run. The fact that after Kubo makes the darting run, Assad fills in the middle. I think that spacing is key to this attack, whether they're in build, whether they're in transition. I think spacing has been really good. There's a couple other really fantastic chances. Orshano has one in the 71st minute off a double back heel, where it was one of the times when Buka got forward into the box, rolled it behind him for Lucho. Lucho back heeled it to Orshano, and he hits it, tries to hit it near post, and goalkeeper makes a fantastic save. Nico Gioacchini's chance at the end could have sealed it, but man, that is a player with zero confidence in on goal with just the goalkeeper to beat, and tries to chip it over him and sends it just wide. When you talk about the stats, when you look at the chances that they had and whether they should have scored, the stats really show that you almost have to give more credit to New York City's goalkeeper, Matt Freese, than faulting FC Cincinnati for not shooting well, because FC Cincinnati created that many good chances, and Freese just had a couple of really good saves. Justin, we're going to take a break and talk about the defense, but is there anything else that you want to highlight about the offense before we do that?
I would just say it's the consistent number of games they've played together now. And you can see that getting a bit more fluent, they're getting the understanding together, and they're getting the consistency together, and it's slowly coming together at the right time, which is great to see. And the amount of shots that they got in this game, coach, it's just great to see. And let's hope they can all bring that energy and spirit into the next game.
Yeah, finish it in two, baby. Justin, we are going to talk about the defense because it was pretty great too. But first, I want to let everyone know that our other show sponsor today is Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. They've helped some of our very own local MLS, MLS Next, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. And if you want to check out my suite of soccer rants and ravings, make sure you follow me on the socials at FC Cincy Tac Talk. If you have a question or comment, you could get at me there, or send me a note to feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Justin, from Bilbaleo 1 again, Obi was a machine all game stopping NYCFC tradition. Doge Guy says the high line of the back three seemed to be winning the battle at the line of demarcations, and the Pigeons didn't have a lot of threat coming forward. Brett Sova says Hadebe is taking his game to the next level. Seems like the aerial game was a major factor in FCC's success. So, Justin, let's talk about the defense as a unit, Hadebe's addition to the team, and whether Obi has finally found his footing that we saw him be so good last year that he hasn't quite hit this year. New York City had zero chances that would be qualified as good chances based on XG. The only half-decent chance from open play was in the 63rd minute when they had a long line-splitting ball to Maxi, and he flicked it on to Perea running down the right wing. Teenage was a little slow to track that run, and then he goes to ground to try to win the ball, doesn't quite win it, which means Perea is on goal. Miles comes from the center, but it's like a combination of Teenage pushing him wide from that initial challenge and Miles timing that and closing that from a good angle means Perea doesn't have a great angle to shoot. And so he hits a rocket, but it's right at Roman because he doesn't have an angle to aim at the goal. They also had half a look late in the game when there's a long ball floated in off a free kick and Chidozie wins it, but he only nods it down to Santi Rodriguez, who blazes a shot over the bar. That was one where like my heart was in my mouth for a minute.
Yeah, me as
But
well.
overall, was this lack of production from NYC FCC doing fantastic things, or what, or was NYC just not sharp? Did you see specific things from the defense that you thought looked really good, or do you think that NYC just wasn't on their game?
I feel NYCFC wasn't on their game. I didn't feel like they had anything going forward. They didn't look like they was gonna really trouble the back line. Yes, they got a few chances that other teams might have put away that they probably should have taken. But all in all, coach, I'll be honest, I wasn't too afraid during the game. I felt like the defense played well as a unit, and they was very, very solid. And Hadebe's come in, and yes, he took a little game or two to get into his stride, but I feel he's been a great addition. Yes, that's now limited Murphy's time, but I feel Hadebe's come in, uses experience, loses knowledge, and he's been a solid addition. And even Yedlin going off at half time and Powell coming in, I felt Powell done a great job defensively also. So I'd say on a whole, coach, I would say defensively, really, really, really good, because you have to play against what you're up against. If the other opposition is no good or aren't really threatening you, then that's your job done. That's fine. Then you're asking what the guys ahead of you are doing. What's the midfield doing? What's the attack doing? And I feel because the attack of Cincinnati, the attacking unit, let's call it attacking unit, was so good defensively, doing their job with the pressing. I feel like defensively they were sound because NYFC couldn't get to the forwards. So that made it a lot easier for the defense. So
Yeah.
it was a great team performance, I would say. Defensively, it was a good defensive team performance.
Yeah, I think so too. Like the back line didn't wow me with anything they were doing in terms of putting out fires. I will say I watched specifically Miles Robinson, because being in the stadium, you can see different things. I saw a few times where he was like especially talking to Yedlin or Powell on the right and getting them to drop in more to pick up a forward or a midfielder would push forward.
That's what we need.
Move over. And so that communication, I think he's really getting more comfortable now that he's been playing in the middle there. So you talked about that back line gelling. I think that's part of it, right? Him playing in the middle. One defensive wrinkle that I did notice is oftentimes Assad was pushing in toward the middle with, like I said, Miles being able to come a little bit more towards the left, pulling that right wing back with him. And it almost looked like FCC was in a back four with Hadebe on the left and Assad more in the middle. Now, what that did is it allowed Assad to help prevent those midfield overloads that NYC looks for. And the other thing it did is because there was an extra player in the midfield, it meant when Obi could just be a wrecking ball. It could be him and Buka were on the same side of the field often over there on the right, but Assad was pinching so far to the middle. It allowed that to work. Now, I don't know if this was a tactical game plan by Pat Noonan or if it was just due to the fact that the NYC right back, Tavon Gray, is not really an offensive threat. He only had 9 attacking third touches. But either way, to Bill Balayo's point, whatever FC Cincinnati did, Obi was a machine in this match. Did it look to you like he was doing anything differently, or was he just dialed in and like, it's playoff time, baby? He showed up and showed out.
No, I think it was playoff time. I would say big players playing big moments, and he really played out. You know what? He was probably saving these performances for the playoffs. As we know, happened last season, but he's probably saving all his energy and all his game nous and game knowledge for the playoffs, and it really showed. And like we say, coach, I still feel that NYFC didn't really have too much going forward. But when you've got someone like Obi, like he's proven since he's been here, he's a rock in there, and someone that you definitely need. And when he's not in there, you do miss him. So I feel it's huge that we've got him, and it was a huge performance from him.
Yeah, and then just to round out, you talked a bit about Hadebe, and especially as it comes to versus him versus Ian Murphy. But on Brett Sova's comment that Hadebe seems to be hitting his stride, we did see him make a few mistakes trying to win
Mhm.
balls. We talked about the
Yeah,
one that led to the chance, where he just he didn't quite get there. But overall, a very solid performance. Now, he's
yeah.
not great on the ball, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what is your overall take on Hadebe versus Murphy? Is Hadebe enough of a defensive upgrade, or is he a defensive upgrade at all? Do you think it's just like a stylistic choice from Noonan?
Yeah, I feel it's a stylistic choice. I also talk about experience, and
Mhm.
I would say it's experience over anything. He's an experienced MLS player, he's an experienced international. He's played a lot of games, and I feel that's why he's in the team and playing at the minute. I don't feel Murphy has done anything terrible to not warrant him to start, or done anything bad that he shouldn't be playing. I just feel it's a manager's choice and someone that's playing with experience who's been there and done it. So
Yeah,
I feel that's why he's in the team.
I
I'll
think
be honest, because that's why I
experience.
think he's there.
I think experience, and I think like there's an intensity to him, and
Yeah,
not
yeah,
it's not that Ian Murphy doesn't play intense. You know, we've seen Ian Murphy get much stronger over the past few seasons. He used to like never win aerial duels, and he actually is
yeah,
winning
yeah.
like 60% of them at this point.
Mhm.
But he just is so much stronger. Hadebe is in the challenge.
Yeah,
Like when you see him tackle, he gets
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. You
ball
don't mess around.
and
Yeah.
he looks like he might decapitate the player on the way. So like there's only 3 players on the team that won more than half of their ground duels, and it was Lucho and Orshano, which many of their ground duels were offensive, and then
Mhm.
Teenage. He also won 2 of 3 aerial duels. He tied for the team lead with 4 tackles. And even if Murphy has gotten better and continues to get stronger, he doesn't put up those kind of numbers. And then, like I said, like the tackles that Hadebe wins are like thundering, which I
Yeah,
think especially in the playoffs, I think it's part of the experience thing, right? You know when you can play with finesse and when you need to lay the wood, bring take, to somebody.
yeah.
But speaking of on the ball, Mike Prentice wrote in and said, FCC played really well, but I can't help but feel like Columbus or Miami would have feasted on some of the giveaways in our defensive third and put 2 or 3 in on them. Clean that up, and this team looks strong. Justin, I think that was the one glaring weakness from this game,
Yeah.
which is weird. Teenage and Miles both had very poor passing percentages out of the center back position. Teenage only was 2 of 9 long balls. He kept trying to hit that long ball into the channel for like Assad or for Kubo and kept getting it wrong and hitting it too narrow, like straight up the middle.
Mhm.
Miles had a 28% possession loss ratio. That means, and Teenage was 31. That basically means a third of the time either of these guys had the ball, they gave it away. Roman's passing was poor. We saw a couple high profile giveaways from him that they didn't punish, but where he played it right to an NYC player. Yuya Kubo had 5 missed touches and 5 dispossessions. Obi's possession loss was 28%. You brought up Powell and how good he was defensively. I agree. He was good defensively, but man, offensively, he was not good at all in this match. He gave the ball away 53% of his touches. So my question to you, Justin, of all of that, I mean, turnovers are going to happen. You hope it's not from the center backs, but when you're going to build out of the back, they're going to happen. Do you think NYC let FCC off easy by not punishing them? Or do you think there was some structure around those turnovers that allowed FCC to be better even when they were giving the ball away?
Yeah, I always look at it in a positive and say structurally, when they did give it away, the team was in the right positions to be able to defend it, or uh, be in the right places to not cause a goal. Um, but I also feel that NYFC just wasn't good attacking wise to capitalize on some of these chances and opportunities that happen in games, that missed passes, lack of concentration. It happens in the game. You misplace the pass. That happens. That's human
Yeah.
nature. I just feel NYFC wasn't good enough to make these chances that they got into goals.
Yeah.
Now, if we're looking at other teams that are good at that, then they will score, as we know. But I just feel, coach, that we tidy that up, these chances in the back. I would rather give away these chances and play further up the field, not in our own half. We tidied it up. We'll be fine, coach. But we can't give away these sloppy passes against a better opposition, that's for sure. Because we definitely would get punished.
Obviously, there's always a bit of a feeling of luck when you're not punished on plays like the one at the end of the game when Corey Baird came in at left wing back and with virtually his first touch gave the ball away. You feel like, oh, it's a let off when they don't get a good shot or definitely score. But also, I think FC Cincinnati was really good in scrambled defense on the night. You know, those center backs, Cheeto, Miles, Teenage, they are all really good defenders. You're not talking about, like, you're talking about 3 guys who on most teams in MLS would be their best center back, right?
Yeah, 100%.
We have 3 of them, and on a lot of teams, they'd be the best center back on any team they were on, at least more than half the teams. We have 3 of them. Also, Obi was so good in scrambled defense, just getting a toe on the ball, just, you know, streaming everywhere. So would Miami or Columbus have punished us? Certainly they would have had a better chance to, because the quality is higher, right? That's why they are 1 and 2 in the East and not 6 or whatever, like NYC is, right? But I think with those players, like you said, you don't have to clean up every turnover. Just make sure the turnovers aren't in as bad a spots. Like Corey Baird's turnover, 100%. That can't happen, because that could be 1 pass and a goal if you're playing against a Columbus or a Miami. But some of them where you're playing a ball into a tight area and there's a little bit of a mistouch and then there's a turnover and there's a transition moment, but the player you gave the ball to is right there to make a challenge, and it's Obi or Buka who's making a foul or putting in a challenge. Some of those are okay if you can continue to be good in scrambled defense. All right, Justin. Before we get to the mailbag, I want to take a minute to thank all of our incredible supporters for downloading today's episode. Thank you guys so much for downloading or listening or watching on YouTube, wherever you're consuming this. Please continue to spread the word. Tell a friend, tweet about us, put us in your Insta stories. You know, we tweet out show note episodes, things, you know, retweet that stuff. Help us grow. You can also rate and review the show over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Coach Apple Podcasts. And you can become a supporter of Cincinnati Soccer Talk over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. In terms of the show, have questions and ask them, whether they're about tactics or coaching. If you want Justin's perspective as a professional player who's been there and done it, you can always get at us on social media or drop us a note in the mailbag. Justin, speaking of the mailbag,
you've got mail.
Our first and only question this week comes from Jose. Jose wants to know, after FCC's strong performance, we know that NYC will make adjustments for the next game. How would you prepare FCC to be ready for those adjustments? Is it an on-field thing, like on-field decisions that take place during the game? Or do you try to anticipate how NYC is going to adjust and make adjustments yourself? So, Justin, I'm going to throw it to you first, because you've played in home and away legs in European competitions. You've had to play teams twice in a row. Have teams that you've been on, how have they handled this? Have they tried to game plan based on what they think the opponent will do? What is emphasized in between matches in the film sessions and on the training pitch?
Ones I've been involved in is you watch the previous game, obviously. You know that every game is going to be different. So I feel you take that there's certain patterns of play and certain individuals that play a certain way that you keep an eye on. Now, if different personnel come into the game, the team will play a different way. Will Cincinnati probably play the same way? Yes. Will they be higher pressing against NYCFC? Maybe. It worked in this game. Will it work in the next game? I don't know. NYCFC will probably have to change the way they play now to not give Cincinnati I would say, so many chances, so many opportunities to press them so high. So I feel they're going to play differently. So I feel, yes, you can prepare for the next game, but I also feel it's an on-field thing because you don't know what the opposition is going to do. They could change their formation. They could completely change their tactic. They could go longer early on. So you can, for a certain extent, prepare for the game on what you've just seen and what you've done well. Yes, you can prepare for that and say, right, if they do this, this is what works well. Let's do the same thing.
Yeah. As a coach, you hit the nail on the head there when you said you can see what's worked well and emphasize it. That, as a coach, is how I would handle this. I don't know how Pat Noonan will handle it. I think trying to get into predicting how NYC will change and then changing just to try to throw your opponent off, I don't think that is a good policy. So what I would do is I would look at where the opponent was successful and ask, how can we shore that up? Now, NYC didn't have a lot of success, but when they did, it was mostly off of long balls and winning the second balls, knockdowns, winning duels. It was like high energy plays. So I don't change what I do, but I do emphasize, like, hey, we've seen NYC is not going to be afraid to play over the top. So how about our first line of pressure when they look their head up to play long? Can you get a step or two closer to make that pass harder? Defense, when that pressure is not within 5 yards, when they look up, can you get your hip turned and be ready for that long ball? That's what's going to happen, right? Things like that, little things. And then there are some changes that will take place. For instance, Tavon Gray, the New York City right back, got a red card. So that will be a sub that happens for sure. Yeah, exactly. And that changes things. Mitya Ilinic, their backup right back, really is more of a winger. He's like the Oreshano Assad version. He is a right wing back. In fact,
I feel like a good one.
And when he's played in games in the past, they've even played 3 center backs at time with him on the wing. Now, you don't know whether they're going to play 3 center backs with Ilinic at the wing back or whether they're going to play him as a true right back. But either way, Assad's job is going to change for sure. He's going to have somebody who's getting forward more often. Now, Ilinic is a young player. He hasn't been super successful, but you're going to have to tell, hey, Yamil, you got to be ready to track that runner back. You can't always cheat to the midfield like you did because he will provide more width than Tavon Gray. So, that's how I've handled it in the past. I don't know what Pat Noonan will do, but what I do know, Justin, is that you and I will be here to break it down, whether it's different, whether it's the same. And hopefully we're talking about what it will look like when FC Cincinnati plays New York Red Bulls in the next round, because, Columbus lost their first match. So we'll see. Justin, anything else to add defensively, offensively? Any players you want to highlight before we get out of here?
I would say, Coach, all in all, it's a great team performance. I can't highlight any individuals because I feel like it was a perfect team. Well, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was a great team performance. I feel the team played well. They stuck to their task. And at the end of the day, you got to beat what's in front of you. If the opposition aren't as good as you thought they were, so what? As long as you get the victory now in this win or go home situation, best of 3. It doesn't matter. However you get the victory, you get out of there, you get the victory done, and you come away with it. Now it's going to be a different situation just because we're playing on a different field, and they're going to have to come out and win the game. But I still think we've got enough, Coach, and I'm raring to go. I'm excited for Saturday. I'm excited for the game. It's earlier on for me now, so I don't have to fight the sleep off to watch the game. I can watch the game, relax. It won't be relaxed,
just
but
for
I'll still
one
be
match.
tense. Just for one match, I'll still be a bit tense, but I'm looking forward to it, Coach. And let's hope we on our next pod we're talking about. Let's talk about Red Bulls. Let's hope we're talking about it.
Just one match, because then America changes their clocks again and we're back to 5 hours apart. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
But who knows? Then you might be coming to watch a match in person because we get you some vacation time, get you over here, get you watching a playoff game. Anyways, thanks for doing it, Justin. This was a lot of fun.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
And that is it for this episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. If you want to do us a huge favor, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're consuming it. Head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Coach Apple Podcast to rate and review the show and share it with somebody. Other than that, thank you for listening. Thanks to producer Mike for making this show audible. And thanks, as always, to my co-host, Justin Hoyte. I had fun today, and I'm hoping you did too. This is Coach Brad Gough reminding you that soccer is a privilege. So whether watching, coaching, or playing, don't forget to smile.